All right, welcome everybody to WasteHero's first ever webinar. Thank you for joining us today. During the webinar here, Louisa is with us today. She will be in the chat to answer any questions you might have. If we're not able to get around them directly, please leave your email and we will get back to you with an answer as soon as possible. So today we will be talking about an introduction to smart waste management. And I think, yeah, we are ready to start. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
My name is Anders. I'm a co-founder and a chief product officer. So my work is basically that I have to align our business strategy with our product development. So I'm in charge of our cloud department.
Yeah, I'm Alex. I'm director of sales. So my main responsibility lies within our sales activities, managing partnerships and key accounts. Essentially, my job is to take a complex solution and make it simple. Today, we will be talking about the current market challenges for waste management, for the traditional waste management. We'll talk a bit about the WasteHero ecosystem. We'll provide an overview of the WasteHero solution and provide a live demo of the platform. Also, we will present our business case with the city of Herning and talk a bit about how we get started with waste management. After the webinar here, if you make it all the way through, we will provide a link where you can sign up for a free demo to try out our solution. And also feel free to ask any questions throughout. We'll try to get around to all of them. It's a bit laggy. All right, so to start off with, we will talk about the problem bit with traditional waste management. So looking at the current market, the majority of both businesses and cities have their waste collected on fixed intervals. So yeah, 2-3 times per week is collected no matter how full it is. And that leads to a lot of unnecessary driving or potentially overflowing bins. What we found is that 9 out of 10 bins are emptied either too early or too late. Obviously, the difference relates to both country to urban or whether you're in the countryside. So with overflowing bins, there's a risk of overflowing bins and contamination, potentially rodents and so on as well. And for underutilized bins, it is on average collected around 40% fullness, which leads to a lot of unnecessary driving, not a proper usage of your fleet management and so on as well. Additionally, there's a lack of insights to the current system or to the current waste collection. And there's, in general, increased CO2 emission, traffic, and unwanted noise related to the current collections.
We have tried to illustrate it here with a flow chart over the different stakeholders who could be involved in a traditional waste management system. So what you often have is that you have a lot of individual stakeholders who often have their own application, their own agenda. It can either be a private or it can be a government-owned institution which handle some sort of activities within the waste stream. So, for example, government regulations across different regions have some very different restrictions. So, for example, in Denmark, we often see that municipalities are caught up on contract that has 4 years extent. We have even experienced that people are involved in 10 years contract, which means that they cannot get out of their current operators. Or you have, for example, our IoT system, which cannot be connected to their current applications, which means that they're not that adaptable for the new sensors. But there are a lot of things that we have to take into account as well when you want to create a solution that can take all of this complexity and put it into one, let's say, simple way of approaching your waste industry, is that we make sure that we can integrate with these different applications and ensure that all of these stakeholders' functionalities are taken care of. And that includes citizens as well as the businesses and the governments.
Yeah, so in short, it's a complex system of waste collection, and there's a lot of systems, different actors involved, and so on. And essentially, there's a need for simplifying things. So looking at the market needs, we divide it into the 3 categories. So efficiency, sustainability, and scalability. There's a big need in the market for having dynamic collection scheduling, meaning that containers are emptied on time based on sensor data, which leads to a significant reduction in the driving time and also the fuel consumption. Additionally, by utilizing sensor data and collecting based on that, you're able to optimize the utilization of your fleet and also your labor resources. Lastly, there's a need for real-time monitoring and tracking, which allows you to make strategic decisions based on this data. Looking at sustainability, this has had an increased focus over the past years, which we very much support. And through our solution, you're able to both reduce CO2 emission, support recycling initiatives, but also minimizing your carbon footprint. Obviously, by reducing the amount of collections, reducing the amount of driving time, you're significantly reducing fuel consumption and thereby CO2 emissions. Lastly, looking at the scalability, it's essential that there's a global infrastructure and secure IoT networks which supports the solution, that you're able to connect to these and get proper data transmission through. Also, there's a need for a flexible solution, such as the WasteHero solution, which is modular. You can adapt it towards your specific needs, because no city is exactly the same, especially looking on a global level. And also, there's a need for it being capable of being integrated, meaning that a lot of cities or waste collectors or whatever it might be have existing systems and are not able to completely switch away from that. So by being able to integrate into that solution, we can kind of meet this market need. Lastly, there's a need of analytics-based decision making. Being able to make strategic decisions based on the data input that you have will significantly improve your efforts towards waste collection.
Yeah, I think it's also important to mention here about the scalability, is that especially us as like IoT manufacturer, that we are aware of that the initiative that we're taking actually lower the overall carbon footprint. Exactly. So, for example, that we are fighting this sustainability, but we should also be aware of what we are doing ourselves, for example, with our shipping and our production of these IoT units, for example. So yeah, the overall goal here is obviously to bring down the carbon footprint. Yeah, so what we try to do here with this flowchart is actually just to showcase how the WasteHero ecosystem works here. And in the middle, you have the waste planner, you have the vehicles with the navigations, you have the driver, you have the assets within the system as well. So what you can do here with the WasteHero ecosystem is that you can actually integrate these third-party systems, which could be your current enterprise systems. We can take inquiries from citizens. We can make notifications to private operators for companies to get their waste picked up. We can get third-party sensors as well. So they could, for example, be weight bridges that they often have at recycling sites. We have our waste management monitoring platform, where you'll be able to go through the analytics and you'll be able to have the complete overview over the system. We have the installation application, which means that the sensors can be installed on the field, so you don't have to sit in the office and connecting them to a certain containers. We have the navigation app, where we have that turn-by-turn direction for the drivers. So when a driver logs in, he will have the unique routes specified for his needs based on his preferred vehicle as well. And then we have our IoT sensor.
So yeah, so essentially what we're trying to do is remove the complexity and make it more simple and combine all these different components into one solution. So this is an example of how it could look. This is an actual example from one of our cases, where on the left side you can see a static collection. So fixed amount of times, 3 times every week, it's collected no matter how full it is. Switching to dynamic collections, we're able to significantly reduce the amount of collections by up to 50%. So either 2 or 1 collection per week. And this is something you see regular in cities and so on as well.
Guys, we have a question from one of our attendees that we might be able to speak a little bit slower, because you're speaking really, really fast.
Yeah, of course. Definitely. So essentially what WasteHero is trying to do is to provide an end-to-end solution. Our solution consists of 4 components. So our waste management platform, our waste bin sensor, our navigation system, and an installation app. And generally, it's user-friendly, developed in collaboration with cities and with businesses to make sure that we can accommodate the needs and requirements that are. And also, we try to make it flexible and modular, meaning you can basically tailor the solution to your specific needs. You can choose which features are creating value for you, and we can adapt that towards that. It's IoT enabled, meaning that the sensors send data directly to our platform, where we're able to process the data and present analytics, generate routes, and so on as well. But Anders will also be showcasing that a bit later on. The sensor itself, we have it with us today, which is, like this. One of the unique things about our device is that we utilize an optical laser sensing technology. So essentially what that means is that we'll send out 16 points inside the container and then calculate the average volume. That also means that we're able to map it in 3D topology, meaning that you can get an actual insight to how does the waste look inside the container. We can provide up to 5 years of battery lifetime for the sensor, and it's supported for different network protocols. So both GSM and IoT networks, so LoRaWAN, Sigfox, NB-IoT, and LTE. The sensor does not have any blind spots and can measure from 0 to 400 centimeters. It's suitable for any type of bin and for any type of fraction. Lastly, it's easy to mount. So as you can see, there are 4 holes here. We'll normally just pre-drill and use rivets to mount it, which should take less than a minute. You can also use the installation app for configuring, which we will talk a bit more about. Yeah. One of the most unique things about the device is the digital antenna, which is able to provide a proper signal no matter where you are in the world. So essentially, we can provide connectivity whether you're in the middle of the desert or in a forest or in an urban area, and make sure that the data transmissions come through.
Yeah, so what the digital antenna actually does is that it locates the area which it's in, and then it configures the band frequencies so it's able to connect to the network.
The WasteHero installation app is available on iOS and Android. Essentially, what it allows you to do is to scan the sensor. There's an NFC tag in here. So basically, you take out the smartphone, you can scan it directly. That means that if you're in the field, if you're out installing them in the actual containers and bins, you can easily configure them, register them, and replace them as well. So it connects directly to the platform. Also, you're able to access all your project settings and calibrate it according to the dimensions of the container. So it makes it very easy and simple to add it to the digitalization when you're in the field. The navigation system is used mainly by drivers. So on our platform, we are generating routes based on live traffic data, sensor data, and the different constraints that we put in. These routes are sent directly to the drivers in their vehicles. So what we normally do is that we have a tablet or a CarPlay system that has installed our navigation app. The driver just logs in and he's then able to see the route that he's supposed to go that day. The navigation system will provide simple turn-by-turn navigation and is adapted towards waste collection. So you're able to add inquiries, skip a container, or add a note to it as well. In general, it's very driver-friendly. Approximately 85% of the users of the WasteHero system are drivers. And obviously that's a huge incentive to make it user-friendly and easy to use. So it's been developed in collaboration with cities and businesses to make sure that it meets those requirements and is user-friendly to use as well. The waste monitoring platform allows you to get a complete overview of your system. So once you log in, you'll be taken to the dashboard where you have all your containers. You can hover over them to see the address, the fill level, and so on. And also on the left side, you will have a modular dashboard which can display different values, such as the average fill level, the fleet usage, and so on as well. You will also have a complete overview of all the containers in the system, and you can see the fill level for each of them, how it's been developing over time. Through our fleet management, you're able to digitize all your assets. So we can add all your vehicles, all your drivers, all your containers to the system and make it available in here. Obviously, we'll add a bunch of constraints to them, and these are taken into account when we're generating the routes. So the routes are generated on the operation management. Now, one of the unique things about WasteHero is that we support both static and dynamic collections. So to take an example, if you're a city with, say, 1,000 containers, and you only wish to test out the solution, you wish to try it out, you can start by adding 1,000 containers to the system, but only add sensors to 100 of them. We can then run dynamic collections on those that have sensors installed, and we can run static collections, so a fixed amount of time for the containers that have no sensors installed. Through our analytics system, you're able to get insight to how it's looking right now. What is the CO2 emission reduced? What is the cost savings? And how efficient are you at the moment? You're also able to compare. So for example, if you have both dynamic and static collections, you can compare these within our analytics system, and you're able to see, well, how much would I be able to save if I suddenly added 100 new sensors or whatever it might be. The system is customizable, so you're able to customize it to what your specific needs. You can assign different roles to different users, and in general, it provides an easy solution to use. It is also integratable, meaning that you're able to integrate it into existing systems, which is seamless, and you can do it through our API, which Anders will talk a bit more about later as well. So I think now Anders will provide a live demo of the platform to showcase how it is. And again, remember that by the end of the webinar here, you will receive a link where you can get access to a free demo, and you can try it out for yourself. Take it away, Anders.
Thank you. So what we have here is essentially a demo account, which means that the data here is generated based on the inputs. So we can actually customize your demo account based on your, for example, current structure, which means that if you provide us with the values such as the size of the fleets, if you have the locations as well, we can actually put it in, and we can generate an account that is kind of assembling or have a structure similar to the one you already have, so you can actually see how it looks like. So what I did here is actually that I had a setup where we have a waste operator who are working in 3 cities in Denmark, for example. And from our dashboard, you will have an overview over the routes for the day. You will have the containers overview. You will be able to see which containers are overflowing, and you will have collection areas or waste scheme. So what you can do here, for example, if you are a route planner or an administration account, you will be able to assign drivers, service employees, or route planner to specific projects or collection areas. You'll be able to see it on a project level as well. So for example, if you have a driver, he will only be able to see, for example, Silkeborg in this scenario here. Our container overview here shows, so what you have here is a generated data, so it's not actually the data that you get from it. We will show you some examples later from how it looks when you have data from the platform, from the sensor as well. But this is just all generated data, so you will get an experience how it looks, how it feels like to utilize our system when you receive the demo account. There will be different filtering options. There will be different time intervals that you can utilize to get a more specific and better overview. If you go into a container here, for example, you will be able to assign collection information. So for example, we want to have this bin here collected on a static or a dynamic. So for example, if you choose a dynamic, you can choose an emptying intervals or exclude days. So for example, if you're not allowed to pick up waste before 6, or you're not allowed to pick it up after 8 and so on, and you're not allowed to pick it on like Saturdays and Sundays. The same goes with static. Well, you will go into static collections, and then you can set time intervals where it's supposed to be picked up. It could be the first Friday in a month, or it could be every 20 days. So it's very flexible how you set up the entire scenario and waste scheme settings.
I think just to highlight the difference between static and dynamic collections is that dynamic means that it's based on the sensor data.
Yeah.
So rather than having fixed collections as with static, so where we have 3 times every week, we can use the sensor data and we can ensure that it is that it is collected on time based on the sensor information.
So we go into our fleet management here. Our fleet management consists of basically 3 components here. We have the vehicles, we have the driver management area, and then we have the locations. So just to give you a brief introduction, our vehicle works that you have the individual vehicles here that you can see in an overview. Those are all based on vehicle types, which has something to do with the settings when we have operation management, which means that some vehicle types have a specific container coupling, which means that they are only allowed or have some limitation regarding the containers that they are allowed to manage. We track a lot of data on these vehicles in order to optimize it in the best possible outcome. So for example, we have the cost structure, we have the capacity, which is very important for us. For example, both volume and weight. There is a lot of constraints regarding weight, for example. A truck is not allowed to have more than a certain amount of weight. For example, metals or other heavy objects often is a constraint before the volume is when we generate routes. If you go into our driver management here, you will be able to see the status of each individual employees. You will be able to see the assigned vehicle. You will see the performance levels as well. You can also go into our analytics and see more heavy analytics as well. In our locations, you will be able to see.
But yeah, essentially through locations, you'll be able to see all the locations that you have. So waste depots, waste stations, and
yeah.
So
yeah, the depot is basically where we have the vehicle stores, where the route starts. The recycling side is where you have to put up the weight and so on. We also have, for example, workshops, so you can actually assign certain workshops, so you can get a notification, for example, when you need to change tires or switch out components in a truck. So the contact person there. Let's go down to operation management.
Runs a bit slow.
Well, maybe in the meantime, you can ask a question.
Yeah.
So if you have like 1,000 containers and you need to add them to the platform, do you need to do that manually?
Good question.
Yeah, so there is an option to make a bulk upload, which basically means that you can upload all your asset at the same time. So after you have configured your project settings, which means that you have established your container types, your waste fractions, and the measurement settings, you can receive a file where you can put in lat longitude, connect them to the correct container ID, and then we can actually upload everything at once, so you don't have to do it on an individual level. So the setup is pretty simple, and we have automated most of the processes. Obviously, we will also guide you throughout the entire process. So here we have, for example, a route overview. The demo here has certain elements, so you can pick and choose these modules that you want to have on your demo account as well. But here we have a route overview. We have the inquiries and how you report an inquiry. For example, a route manager will have the opportunity to see the distance. You have the opportunity to see the stops. You have the unique route that is generated based on the constraints. When we talk about constraints, we mean both volume-wise in the container type. We mean about the interaction between the container and the vehicle, but it's also the work hours, the openings hours, the restrictions that are put into the system. Is about making all that optimized based on those constraints. Yeah, a route planner will have the ability to add routes from his account. He will be able to assign new stops. He will be able to remove some. He will be able to see the entire overview of the day. If we go into inquiries, so inquiries can be anything, for example, from bulk waste till the broken lid till I think we have it here. So for example, here we have approximately 10-12 different inquiries. Drivers, service employees, citizens will be able to make these inquiries, put them into the system, and they will be taken care of when we are generating new routes, they'll be able to make manual routes based on these, but you will also be able to assign them to ongoing routes already. But if you have bulk waste, for example, you often require certain types of vehicle to pick that up. That could be a bed on the streets, which needs special treatment. It could be damage or overflowing or missorted waste, which is one of the most common scenarios here in Denmark, for example. We often have rules in Denmark regarding that there must not be more than 10% missorted waste in a recycling material if you want to have a return on it. And the reporting is very simple. This works both for our citizen applications, our driver application, but also from the platform itself, where you will be able to put in these case types. There are a lot more in our settings where you will be able to customize it based on your needs. We have seen a lot of different scenarios. We even have systems where a loose dog is such an occurring problem that it actually are putting into the system. You will be able to assign the container ID, deadline, and you will be able to assign which project it in, comment, and you will make an estimated guess on volume and weight. These are not essential, or these are not necessary, mandatory to put in as well. Analytics, we have a lot of different analytics components. And so what I want to show you today is our overview and our simulations. And I want to show you the heat mapping, which actually shows a heat map dividing into different color sections, where you can see how the weight is. So Alex, he talked about earlier that you could see the difference between, for example, static and the dynamic. This is, for example, the platform where you'll be able to see the difference after you have filled in the information. So what you do is actually that you put in your historical or your traditional approach to waste management, which, for example, could be that you make a combination of the waste and the containers, then you put in the frequencies, and then afterwards we will start to track the efficiency with our solution, and you will be able to see the savings, the collections that you have reduced. You will be able to see the potential saving if you scale it up. All of these things will be available in our settings. So the heat maps runs on the weight. There are different way for us to get the weight into the system. And the most often is that the driver, after they have emptied a container, they have a vehicle computer where they can see the current weight for each individual containers, and then they type it into the navigation app. And then we will have the service times, and we will have the weight for each individual containers. There is also a possibility to get an integration to either the vehicle container or a third-party either unit or system, either weight bridge or a system that store all this weight data. And here again, it's flexible for the administration to go in and select collection areas to see also here as well, and it will dynamically change. You will be able to pick a period as well. It could, for example, be last month, as we have in this current example here. So we briefly talked about the support centers as well. So the support center is basically your guide. You always have it close by. You will be able to see how does the navigation work, how does the mobile installation work, what equipment is required to mount the sensors, how should I maintain it, and then we have the technical specifications as well here.
Yeah. So for each of these, you can go in and you can find an article. How do you do a specific thing? How do you create a container? How do you change the language? Yeah.
So, now you have an insight into some of the features and modules that we are available to provide to our customers from WasteHero side on. Obviously, you can also integrate these things, as we mentioned a couple of times. The reason why we keep going back to this is because it's just a huge part of streamlining the waste industry is that you are adaptable and you are flexible regarding your integrations. So if you have a larger systems, for example, our ERP system, you can integrate the features, for example, the fleet and operation modules. You will be able to receive the graphs. You can get specific visualizations or analytics as predicting service times, past driving, reduce collections and savings, and so on.
Yeah, so essentially what it allows you to do is to choose which features do you want and integrate it into your existing solution through our API.
Yep. Yeah, here we have some of the data inputs that we have. Underneath each of these data input, there is a lot of subcategories as well. This is just to give you a short introduction to some of the elements and modules that you can put into your own system.
Yeah, so you're talking a bit about customer success. So if you decide to launch a project with WasteHero, we will assign a customer success manager to the project, who will be your help throughout the entire project and your contact person. Also, we have the support center, which Anders just briefly showed before, where you can go in and you can find articles how to do different things on the platform. Once we start, you will be going through a tutorial which is designed to your specific job title. So it differs whether you're a driver or you're in administration or whatever it might be. You will receive a specific tutorial towards your specific role. Also, WasteHero will be providing onboarding training and a session to make sure you have a proper understanding of the system, how you utilize such. WasteHero also has a ticket system. So that means if you have any challenges that you might meet, you're able to submit a ticket, and we will then within 24 hours get back to you on that. And that can basically be for anything. Then lastly, the system has the flexibility to scale projects. So that means that you're able to start in the small, able to launch a small project, and then we can easily scale up from that. You can quite easily add more containers, more vehicles or drivers or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think it's also important to mention here that the onboarding tutorial that you will receive depends on your job title and your account permission. So if you're a purchasing manager or you're the administration manager and you invite a route planner, service employees or driver, they will have a unique tutorial going through the features that are essential and important for that specific stakeholders within your own system. So I want to talk a little bit about one of the cases that we have, for example, in Herning, which we've been working with since 2017. So back then we had a project aim. We wanted to identify optimization options in their current waste streams. And what we started out with that we wanted to digitalize their assets. And when I refer to asset, I mean employees, location, and vehicles, which we just briefly saw in the demo version earlier on. And then we wanted to convert over to dynamic collections instead of these static frequencies instead. So the case was that we had these 412 bottle glass containers that we wanted to optimize on. It was divided between 3 different container types. So we had semi, underground containers, and then we had regular over service containers as well. All of these were collected on a static frequencies. So in the graph we have to the right here, you can see that the frequencies here is that they were empty every second week. So this was before we switched over to the dynamic collections, because we wanted to see the behavior in these. We wanted to establish what is the current baseline. So in this case here, we actually have a driver who had to drive a half hour out to this underground glass container. He looked down and he estimated, all right, did it make sense for me to drive a half hour, look down? Often it did, because he had to drive a half hour out to it. So even though it's only 25%, he emptied it anyway. And here we have a scenario where he drives out and he says, all right, it's still 25%. We can at least wait 2 weeks more. Then he came back 2 weeks later and then he emptied it. It was still just 50%. And then it goes on and on and on. And then we have a spike here, which is really interesting, because this is something to do with the season that you're in. So what we have here is actually the holidays. We actually have Christmas here and we have New Year's Eve here. So actually based on the season and the waste fractions, you can actually see different environments and see different data based on that. So that's really interesting to look at. So for example, there is an increase of glass during the holidays, which makes total sense. So after we implemented our solution, we went over to this dynamic collection where we agreed with Herning that efficient collection for them would be like 75 and above. So what we have here is that we switched over, and then after census has registered or predicted that you will reach that efficient emptying, we will plan it in our systems and we will generate routes so it will be picked up after it reaches the 75% fill level.
Yeah, so to talk a bit about why does this suddenly make sense now? First of all, there's a global tendency towards urbanization. So more and more people are moving towards cities. And meanwhile, we are generating more waste than ever before. So there's an increasing challenge to have an efficient waste collection system and to make sure that it's emptied on time. Additionally, there's an increased focus on sustainability and efficiency as well. And we have this whole circular economy focus. So by being able to predict when the bins are going to be full and plan routes accordingly will significantly help to overcome some of these challenges. Additionally, when you are in urban areas, you have overflowing bins, you have issues such as contamination, you have fees for such and so on. So by being able to eliminate such, we can significantly improve it. Additionally, there's been quite a development within technology as well. So first of all, there's been this whole IoT transformation where we suddenly start to put sensors into containers or different IoT. Additionally, there's an increased battery life, meaning that by utilizing these different IoT networks, we're able to optimize such. And also there's been a huge development within the battery industry, which means that we're able to provide batteries that last significantly longer. Lastly, the components that are utilized for creating a sensor and so on has significantly decreased in cost, meaning it's suddenly affordable. It makes sense to produce a sensor, implement it into a container, and then fill it based on that. Lastly, we have the scalability. So first of all, we have these global IoT networks such as LoRaWAN, NB-IoT, LTE-M that are popping up everywhere. We had previously the GSM networks, which were designed to send large data packages. You probably know it from your phone that you're able to send videos and pictures and so on, whereas the sensor sends a very limited data transmission. So by tapping into these IoT networks, we're able to increase the signal strength. Lastly, we have with regards to security and improvement, there's been an additional security layer added to the different networks, which makes it much more viable. It's fine with that. So to end off with, we're actually getting towards the end. So first of all, thank you for participating today. We will be sending here in the chat a link. Louisa will send it. So you can click it and you can sign up for a free demo. You can try out the system yourself and see if it creates any value for you. Also, I think we will be going through a bit of the questions. We do have a bit of time left. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Yeah. So we have about 5 minutes left for some questions.
Yeah.
The first is if you guys can shed a little bit more light on the difference between static and dynamic collections.
Yes, definitely. So static collections means that we have a fixed interval. So 3 times every single week it's collected, no matter what. So we have these static collections. By switching to dynamic collection, that means that we utilize the sensor data. So we measure the fill level of the bin, and then we use that data to predict when to empty the bin, which means that it's dynamic instead. So rather than,
I think you can simplify it by saying it's going over to a data-driven, need-based collection instead of a collection with a fixed.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I hope that answers.
Yeah. Another question we have is that we refer to connecting the waste bins with either NB-IoT, LoRaWAN, or GSM. In which countries can we offer these connectivity services?
So WasteHero has a global connectivity provision. So we're able to connect in more than 185 countries with more than 780 different providers. So essentially what we're able to do is, whether it's in Uruguay or in Zimbabwe or wherever it might be, we have a long list of network providers we can connect directly to, and we can then ensure connectivity. If we are in very remote places, such as we have some implementations in the desert in Saudi Arabia, we will run an initial test to see which connectivity provider can provide the best connectivity, and then thereby ensure it.
Also, our connectivity provider are always glad and open to negotiate with new networks within each region and countries. So for example, if they have 3 or 4 options in a country, and we have a customer who are looking for a certain network, we can actually ask our provider to either start a collaboration with them or negotiate or figuring out some kind of solution. So we are very flexible regarding our connectivity options.
Yeah. I have another question. Can you combine the route manager to route both static and dynamic bins?
Yeah, so for example, what actually determines if a collection is included into a route is not if it's static or if it's dynamic, it's the environment that you set up. So it all comes down to the constraints of, for example, your container type, your vehicle type, and the couplings that there are between those two. And then obviously you have the limitations of the work schedule for the driver, and you have the capacity for the vehicles, which mean that the weight and volume, and you have the openings hours. But essentially the answer is yes, we can include both static and dynamic containers on the same route.
Is there any maintenance involved in or included in the sensors?
It is very limited if there is any at all. So first of all, the sensor has been designed with a special glass, which is dust and condense free. So essentially what that means is that you don't have to clean it. Now we have some cases running for almost 4 years now that haven't had to be cleaned yet. However, in case of such, we have designed the casing so you can see there's a small thumb imprint here. So basically just swipe it with your thumb and then you have clear glass again. The rest of the maintenance can be done over the air. So we'll upload different updates to the system, to the sensor and so on, and we can do that over the air. So the need for physical maintenance is very limited.
Okay, I have a question about potential theft. Is there an alarm or anything in the sensor so that when someone unauthorized tries to separate it from the container?
Yes, good question. So in each sensor, it comes with a GPS module, an accelerometer, and a temperature sensor as well. So essentially what that means is that we can assign it to a specific region. So through the GPS, we can assign it to a specific region, and then if it moves outside the given region, it will trigger an alert. So that is one of the use cases for the GPS.
But it is a very good concern, because that's also why, for example, we recommend that you use rivets, because that requires that you're using some kind of power-driven tools in order to actually unmount it.
Yeah. Another question we have is which languages the platform is available in?
So yeah, currently we have it in Danish and English, but we are able to translate into any language that we want. So it kind of depends on the customers. However, during this year, we already have 3 languages that we want to have included, which is Spanish, German, and what's the last one?
Spanish and German to begin with.
Right, I guess there's 2 then. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just see if there's any more. If they currently have their own existing system, how are they able to make use of the WasteHero solution?
Yes, good question. So in most of the cases, we see our clients or our partners have existing systems. So cities have been running on previous system, or waste collectors are utilizing existing system. So either we can, as Anders talked about, integrate through our API, or we can also make it much more simplistic. So today, most businesses or waste collectors probably have in their contract that you're able to go out, you can look in the container, you can give a call, say, hey, it's full. And essentially we can do that through the sensor as well. So we're able to simply send a notification through an email or a text message or whatever it might be to the waste collector and stating that now it needs to be collected.
to go back to the root of the question is that it's modular built. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for. So for example, if you have an RP systems and you want to have, for example, the routes integrated into it, and you just want to see, for example, some analytics or some tables, you will be able to include that into your, for example, the IoT platform you utilize, for example, to have an overview of parking lots or humidity sensors or whatever you're already utilizing. So you will be able to pick certain elements from our platform and integrate it into your existing platform application.
But yeah, I think we ran out of time. So thank you very much for participating. Again, this is the first webinar in a row of many. Hopefully, so we hope to see you again. Remember to click the link in the chat and you're able to sign up for a free demo. And again, if you have any questions that we haven't been able to answer, feel free to contact us. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, but before we end as well, if you have questions for either Alex or I, you will be able to see our contact information on our website. Also, if you go into our either LinkedIn profile or Facebook, you will be also to see upcoming opportunities if you want a career within smart waste management. So look us up if you think this is if you think this is interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a
Have
good
a
day.
great day.